about it. And that's it.
I can believe it. I can't find it.
It's 106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
My fellow Americans and autists who voted for Trump, it's your boy Dank Brandon here. I want to take a moment to congratulate the DNC on losing another election to Donald Trump. You replaced me with a candidate who has the same likability as Greasy, hobo taint and expected to win, and they say I'm the retarded one. The Democrats said that I was too old, that I was too slow, that I was a joke. Well, here's a joke for you. What do Willie Brown and the 2024 presidential election have in common? Kamala Harris blew both of them. I shouldn't have said that. But seriously, I mean, first Hillary loses to Donald and now Kamala. This man has beaten more women than Doug Emhoff. Anyways, congrats on losing to Hitler again. I hope he locked you all up this time. Dank Brandon out.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Hey there, Chicago Corner. Friends, peeps, countrymen. It's been a minute. Actually, it's been 563,040 minutes since we last live streamed to you last October. We've missed you, and don't think because we haven't been on the air, we haven't been in touch with each other. One of the reasons we decided to return tonight was because every time we all get together for pizza at Ed's or dinner somewhere, and we have one of our lengthy conversations on what's happening in the world, we look at each other and we say, that was a podcast. And this past, I don't remember, the election was Tuesday, Wednesday morning, me with my big mouth and my subversive attitude was posting memes on my Facebook page. Where would we be without the memes like we just started the show with? I think I would lose my mind if it weren't for all the political memes. And maybe I was gloating. Not being a Trump supporter, but not being a Harris supporter. Just because I'm not happy that Trump won doesn't mean I'm sorry. Just because I'm happy Kamala lost. Just because I'm happy Kamala lost doesn't mean I'm happy that Trump won. And my dear friend Kira texted me that morning, Wednesday, and said, there are a lot of people hurting right now as a result of what happened. And she's right. And as we were engaged back and forth about my lack of decorum in addressing what was going on the day after the election, I get a phone call from our dear friend Ed, who's on his way to work. And Ed says, Jerry, can you and Kira please stop texting? I'm driving to work right now. It's really distracting, or words to that effect. Why don't you guys stop texting? If you want to argue about this, why don't you do a podcast? And I said, that's a great idea. Are you up for it? Yes, I am. Let me ask Kira. So here we are.
Wait, how the hell did I get here? Wait.
No.
This isn't New York.
Yeah, well,
what is this? What the hell?
Yeah, we had a free studio space open in Studio B at Casa de Ed, so we invited Warren to join us tonight as well.
And him too. Don't forget this motherfucker.
I meant to ask you, Warren. Does he have a name, or do we have to come up with one?
He hasn't told me yet.
Okay.
As soon as he does,
we love Uncle Warren, which is why we want him to invite him. He's now here in Chicago with us all the time. And I think Warren has as much valuable insight to provide as Ed and Kira, and hopefully myself, if I can kind of lay off the gallows humor, because there's so much has happened since Tuesday. And, you know, even when I was preparing the thumbnail, how are we going to talk about this tonight? Is it going to be about recriminations or admonishments about how some people are celebrating, trying to hold the Democratic Party accountable, having sensitivity for other people's feelings about this? And I thought that this is about the lessons that we've learned from this election, which is why I titled the show, Coping with the Lessons of 2024, however any of us are trying to manage and deal with that. So having set things up, I don't know how many people follow me on Facebook to see that I was leaning on the memes, and I'm just going to like throw this out there and then hand it to Kira, because Kira, you know, had some, I think, relevant stuff to share about maybe my insensitivity, even though I wasn't trying to be insensitive. But I'm just going to say this, Kira, for everybody that thought perhaps I was gloating and I shouldn't take this much joy, if I can use that word, in the Democrats' defeat. Let me tell you something. When they rigged the primary twice and robbed Bernie Sanders, not just Bernie Sanders, but all of us twice, took away our health care, possibility for health care, took away the possibilities of the platform that Bernie Sanders presented, and told us all to shut up, suck it up, get behind Hillary, get behind Biden, okay? I'm sorry. I wasn't good with that at that time. And since that time, I think we've all been screaming from the rooftops to the Democratic Party. You want people to vote for you? This is not the way to do it. You've abandoned the working class. You've abandoned women with the several decades you could have codified Roe v. Wade that you fundraise off of all the time, okay? All these things we've been screaming about, all they ran on was cultural identity rights and women's reproductive rights. And those are important, but they're not the only things that the Democratic Party should have been focused on. It's Gaza, stupid, was another big reason. So, you know, I was posting stuff on Facebook, and I wasn't gloating in all of my posts, but a lot of them were basically casting light back at the Democratic Party. You did this. It's not the voters' fault. This was a landslide. It was too big to rig. You know, Obama and Democrat, well, let's wait a few days and, you know, let's wait for all the votes to come. No, too big to rig. It was a landslide you could not rig, which shocked me because I didn't think the deep state was going to let him win again after they tried to whack him. But back to, and we can talk about that later too, but let's bring it back to how people are coping with the election. And, you know, Kira, if I offended you or anyone in your household, certainly wasn't my intention, but I'm like sick and tired of us walking on eggshells, not telling the Democrats. And what did Kamala do at her concession speech? She fucking doubled down.
Yeah.
That was not a speech bringing people together. It was throwing more gasoline on the fire of how we're going to fight back and we're all going to lose our rights. We're never going to vote again. Enough is enough, man. It's just, it's absurd.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The Democratic elite not getting the message, right? Obviously, the voters got that message, right? And like, who knew? The rest of the voting public dislike the Democratic Party as much as we do, right?
They leverage their votes, not voting for them. So that next election, they can say, do shit, or else you're not going to be in a position of leadership again. Right. That's what Muslims in Michigan and Wisconsin, Michigan, and what was the other swing state? Minnesota? Yeah. They Muslims withheld their vote because of Gaza, right? Good. Mm-hmm. They were sending a message. You want our votes? End the war, do a ceasefire. And I've said, you know, women need to do this too for the pro-choice plank. Democrats, you want us to codify it, run an executive order before you're out of office, Biden, do fucking something. But even Kamala couldn't change something if she got in, guys. Oh, she's going to reverse road. No, she's not.
Yeah, no, she's not. Well, I mean, she doesn't think that she has that much power, right? Because, you know, the politicians aren't the one calling the shots. You know, it's obviously their donors. So for me, no, like I'm not offended, right? I have a very strong belief that the Democrats are deeply corrupted. And inside of what we're doing right now, we're just going to keep getting more of the same, except it's just going to slowly get worse and worse and worse. And so, you know, I'm not surprised by the results of this election. I was getting a lot of information from a lot of different people, because I didn't watch that closely on the election, just because I kind of had a feeling that Trump was going to win anyway. But a lot of people were telling me, no, I'm super optimistic. I really feel like, you know, women are going to come out, older, you know, seniors, all these like secret voters are going to be coming out. And I'm like, okay, oh, great. Okay, sure. I just didn't know how I was feeling about that.
Pollsters were wrong
Everybody
too.
was
Kira froze.
shell shocked.
Your internet's freezing a little
Like
bit there, Kira.
We can wait for her. Kira, you're
Her
freezing a little
internet
bit. We'll wait.
My internet.
Oh, damn.
Grr.
We didn't
Let
get.
me
We didn't.
know when I'm.
We did. We did. Now we see. Now you're normal motion again.
Okay. So on Wednesday, when everybody was totally shocked by the results, so I think what I need to explain first is where the context that I'm coming from. The context I come from is, and I'm an organizer. Okay. So when people are really angry and upset, I mean, I hate to say this because it sounds really manipulative, but it's kind of the truth. That's when you like bring them in, right, to organizing. And the way to do that is through really effective communication, especially at a time like this. And we need everybody to get involved if anything is actually going to change in our government. And I'm not talking about the people who are already holding power. They're gone, they're lost, you know, but we need all these folks who, you know, whatever you want to call them, however you want to pigeonhole them, blue MAGA, people who are conditioned in this duopoly to think that this is the only thing that they can do, you know, and everything else that we see out there. We need those people to come and join us, right? So that we can build power and that we can send powerful messages to our leaders saying, no, like this doesn't fly anymore. The other thing, you know, that I see happens when people do get active and organized is the fear tends to diminish. And so people who are actually taking action in their communities don't feel as scared about outcomes of elections, right? Because they actually do feel like there are things to do. So not only like are we doing a real disservice when we open a message saying, hey, blue MAGA, I told you so.
I'm
right?
guilty.
Really you know,
but I've been calling them blue MAGA. I've been calling them blue MAGA for the past year because it's a cultish mentality ignoring the rest of us.
Yeah. That it makes me cringe, right? But like, it's not offensive. It's just like, I wouldn't call anybody that holds very similar values to me a name because I need them to be on my team, right? But like that's just the kind of person I am, though. I am a person who, I might have COVID. Mark has COVID. He tested positive for COVID last night, so my brain is a little bit like wonky. But like,
sorry.
I've studied communication quite extensively. I got a degree in it, but then I also did a very intensive course about effective team communication. And the thing that has people want to join what it is you're doing is that they feel seen and they feel heard and they feel like they can make a difference. And so when we, as the political, like the real political left, not, you know, the Democrats, right? And when I say Democrats, I mean like big D Democrats. I talk about the leadership. I'm not talking about voters, right? You know, when we are talking to these folks, we want to make sure that they know that we are sitting in the same values as them, and that we are people that they can come to start taking action. And so that's where I come from, right? Like I don't get it's kind of hard to offend me, but like
you're a better person than I am, Kira. You're the organizer. I'm the big mouth trying to make people laugh.
Well, and that's the other thing is like after I started messaging you, I was like, Kira, I kind of like slapped myself on the wrist because I was like, Kira, you have like your perception is activist organizer. That's your fucking lane, right?
And
like,
I'm glad it is because we need people that know how to do that.
What's that?
I said, I'm glad we need people like you who have the discipline to do that. I don't. And that's why, I mean, and I felt bad because I'm like, I understood you had a point, but that is your wheelhouse. You're so good at that. And that's how you analyze things. Me, I'm just like, how do you all feel now that you threw the same bullshit at us with Sanders?
Yeah.
Do you understand now why we have to start looking at the party and holding their feet to the fire and getting out the torches and pitchforks and guillotines? If they ever want to be in a position of leadership again, they need to stop talking. As Kamala said, I'm talking, and start fucking listening.
Right.
That's why she lost.
Right. And I will assert that we as people who hold no power, right? Really, no power, we also got to start listening, right? Because that's like what we give is what we get, right? And that's kind of how the world works. And so like Jerry, you and I have become incredibly good friends, and I totally know where you come from and how pissed you are. And I get like, I love that anger. I love being mad. So like, I'm right there with you. And like not all of us ride in the organizer lane. And so I think it's a good conversation to have regardless of what lane we're driving in, just so that when we're approaching our communication about this topic, we do it with a level of intentionality that's beyond just our trauma reflex. And, my professional life is in trauma, right, of the body. And so we're all just reactions waiting to happen. Constantly, whether it's fight, flight, freeze, or
the whole
fawn,
country
right?
was a reaction waiting to happen.
Our country, this election was a trauma reaction.
Sown from serious post-traumatic stress disorder preceding it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I wanted to really cover with you guys and kind of like dig into and have a good time talking about too was these follow. This is how prepared I got tonight, you guys. What a change from my previous.
You wrote things down? Wow.
Of course I wrote things down, you guys. Of course I prepared an outline.
She's always
Who am
prepared.
She's using a redneck notebook, by the way. Is when you use like unopened bill and you use it as scratch paper. That is a redneck notebook. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
I'm ratchet, you guys. You have no idea.
Oh, you go, girl.
You
get
know.
And speaking of ratchet, why don't we welcome the people in our chat room right now?
Sure.
No, I'm
What
just
a segue.
teasing, guys.
No, actually, really quickly, we have
over on YouTube, I see Lainey Peterson's joining us. Hello, Lainey. Hello, friend.
Cheers, Lainey. Oh, I'm sorry. Cheers, Lainey.
It's Laser Eye Jerry and Laser Eye Oreo on that pint glass, which is still available in the Fourth Wall store if you guys want one of those or one of the other stylish things that are there. You can check. I think there's still a link in the description. If not, go to chicagocornertv.com. I'm sure there's a link there for the store. Constitutional conservative cousin Lou is joining us as well. Hello, Lou. He brings up an interesting point.
Naturally.
And I actually have a response to him on this. He says Roe versus Wade simply went back to the states to decide it as it should be, more power to the people versus federal. I have to push back on that, Lou, because if we're being honest, your healthcare, your personal healthcare, is a private concern and should fall under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. That
government shouldn't be involved in your health decisions that way.
And whether you like it or not, the Constitution is federal rule.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be hypocrisy in saying that you want states' rights when you're all about the Constitution, which is literally federal. in nature.
I want to bring Warren into the conversation here. Let's kind of steer it back towards what we saw the aftermath of Tuesday on Wednesday morning, Warren, because I think you and I were kind of addressing the same, things in the room as far as like, hey, fucking wake up, everybody. How could you not see this happen? And why are you blaming us that didn't support her instead of holding the party accountable that ignored everybody's absolutely legitimate concerns, especially the genocide in Palestine right now?
Well, I mean, I've gone on record as saying that I think electoral politics is just silly when you have a system that is so corrupt and just entrenched with just so much money and so much elitist power, where the people have zero power. So it's just like going to the polls. It seems these days it's just theater, right? You're just going through the motions. I mean, I understand the spirit of wanting to elect somebody that's not Trump or that's not a Democrat. But like I said, it's just, we all know that both of these parties have the same donors. It's the same people running both shows.
Duopoly.
Yeah. It's like a movie theater. It's like a theater, but it's got it's a multiplex, right? You got different theaters and they're playing different movies, but it's still under the same roof. It's still owned by the same people.
You know what it is, Warren? You know what it is?
Fucking Dearman.
As that guy for Halloween, he looked amazing.
He did.
But back to Warren's point, though, I mean, the duopoly, everybody as Ed's talked about so often in the past, it's a two-party duopoly. People think it's kayfabe, like wrestling, like Ed has brought that up too.
Yeah,
it's designed to divide us. I mean, it's designed to put people in two different. It may give you the illusion that you're in two different camps, but when in reality, yeah, you do have different opinions and goals and stuff like that. But overall, the leadership, they all fall under the same rule, like Kira said, the donors or whoever's in control of these people, right? So I wasn't so when the election came around, I was kind of like gallows humor, like you, Jerry. I was waiting for all the meltdowns the next day.
And there were meltdowns.
Hokey smokes, Bullwinkle. It was all the meltdowns.
I knew it was going to be really bad. I mean, yeah.
But can I share something with you? Let me before you go on. For everybody that look, again, I'm not a fan of Trump, but wouldn't it be a surprise if he actually followed through on some things? And look what Rogan just reported today. Hamas calls for immediate end to war after. Now, is it going to happen? No. Who knows? But was happening last week before the election? No.
Jerry, let me push back on this. Hamas has been calling for that for a year, over and over and over again. This is the first time someone in media has covered it, which is why it's on Joe Rogan's radar.
They have been
go
wanting
F
a
himself.
ceasefire for a while.
All right, I didn't know that, but I also know that there was an attempted coup against Netanyahu several days ago, which I hoped would end up with him going the way of Mussolini, strung up upside down the way he should be. I don't know what's happened since the coup attempt began. But that country was ripe to throw him out before October 7th.
I don't want to drag this whole live stream down, but I feel like I need to remind everyone in the audience, especially if they weren't paying attention, that we have a Facebook page and we have a community page, Chicago Corner Community Group. And for the last year, I've been trying to keep people informed on what was actually going on during this occupied genocide situation in Palestine. Now, people want to call it a war. It's not a war. This has been Israel's plan since the late 1800s. They put things into motion essentially since 1947 when the UN gave Palestine half of their country to Israel, and it wasn't enough. And ever since then, Israel's been finding ways to make everybody Islamophobic and to believe that everyone in the Arab community or anyone of the Islamic faith is somehow a lesser than or evil or has some evil terrorist religion or some other something. This has been nonstop propaganda by the rogue fascist state of Israel since the Zionist project had started.
It's one of several reasons we fled the air since last year, because it was too overwhelming reporting on dead kids in Gaza every night.
But we have to talk about this. But we have to talk about this briefly because people need to understand that this is also why Kamala Harris lost.
I think
She and the Biden administration continued funding and arming Israel and a genocide. You cannot be a moral person and vote for that. You're making a huge concession and a huge you're conflicting your own morals if you're against genocide and voting for that. You're telling them that they have a green light to genocide anybody, and then maybe you're next.
Well, and then that's where I'll push back, right? Like, I don't know that I can blanket statement say someone who votes for Kamala has no morals, right? Because people were like given two choices. And in our conditioned belief system of this duopoly that we live in, those are the two choices you have. So you either have the genocide we're having now or probably a worse genocide with Trump. Right?
No, there's no worse genocide. I'm pushing back on that right now. Well, I'm pushing back on that There's no worse genocide. Gaza is decimated. It's destroyed.
It is decimated, absolutely. But voting Trump in wasn't the moral stance on that either. There wasn't really anything moral to do inside of the voting, right? Maybe
the one thing that people
inaction is action too, right? So what I'm pointing to here, Ed, is that when you tell people that we want on our side that they have no morals, they stop listening. So anybody on this stream,
but Kira, they're not listening. I think a lot of them aren't listening
anybody on this stream who voted for Kamala just shut down. Just saying.
I'm not shutting any. I don't think we're shutting down people who voted for.
Let me clarify. Let me clarify.
Nobody is saying people who voted for Kamala are what. I just lost track of what.
Have no morals.
I didn't say no morals. I'm sorry. I was struggling.
I don't see. Ed, hold on.
Please.
I don't see a lot of Kamala supporters listening to us. It's just been full speed ahead since she was anointed. They're not holding the party accountable. And when we understand, why do we have to worry about their feelings and them not feeling heard?
Do you want them to come over to this side, or do you want
Kira? All I've heard for the past year since a couple of years since they robbed Bernie was, okay, if you're not going to vote for us, progressives, we don't need your vote. That's what I've heard from them for the past 4 years and the years before that. If we didn't come around because they didn't give a shit about.
No.
They didn't give a shit about the rest of us.
Can I finish my thought? Because I was searching for the right word and I wasn't able to. And you wanted and you're framing what I was saying as saying that you people have no morals. I was trying to say that you're compromising your morals by voting for a party that promotes genocide. And in this case, there is no lesser evil. You had to vote for the greater good, and the greater good was the Green Party in this case, regardless of what you thought about their chances of winning. Now, the problem I have with the legacy media is they don't cover anything other than the duopoly. And so even if people knew they had a third option that might have had a chance of winning, they're getting fed all
she had no chance,
telling them they have no chance. And like Jerry's saying, you have no chance. Nobody has a chance until you vote for them.
But you know what? Let me say this, Ed. The Green Party should have tried to run someone like Ventura. I can't take Jill Stein seriously. She doesn't do anything between elections. If she had provided some public service throughout her life, the way Senator Sanders has, and demonstrated public service, I could take her seriously. She trots out every election cycle and runs for president. I want to toss this to Warren because I think Warren's got a really good insight into what Jill Stein. You were talking about this on your show the other night, Warren.
What about Jill Stein? Yeah. Well, I mean, even if she got elected, let's say she got elected, right? Let's put a scenario out there. So Jill Stein gets elected, right? the most realistic case that Stein would get elected, she would barely win, right? She would not just steamroll the whole thing and have a mandate going into the office, right? She'd barely make it in. She'd still have to deal with now a Republican Senate, a Republican House, and basically a Republican Supreme Court. You can only do so many executive orders in a 4-year span. That's not going to stick because they're not laws. You have to have people in this current situation. You have to have partners in government to help you get those laws passed that you want for real change. But these motherfuckers don't want the change. That's why the system is shit. That's why I tell people, you're putting this emphasis on the Green Party. You're wasting your energy. All right.
They got to get their act together for people to get behind them, and they're just not doing it on a national level at all. I'm
going to give you the blueprint, and you're welcome in advance. All right. What we need to be doing is we need to be talking to people who make capitalism run. Who is that? That's transportation, right? That's people at the ports. That's truckers. That's even the little UPS guys running around. We have to get in good with those guys, right? Like Kira said, we have to have better, effective communication. And by that is you have to find common ground with people, right? Like, for example, when I talk to my Southern conservative friends, right? And they talk about all these damn regulations and all this stuff. I said, let me tell you something. So when you go hunting, you're a deer hunter, right? Yeah. You're a deer hunter. You go out there and you get deer every year, right? You're a fisherman. You go out and you fish, right? Do you want to fish in polluted waters? Do you want to eat deer that's drank polluted water? We need regulation in order to stop that from happening. So you have to get on their level. But he's saying, like Jerry was saying, when you're just going to trot Jill Stein out every 4 years. Well, it was Howie Hawkins last time.
Yeah, it was
Howie, double H. If you're going to trot out those people, and then they're not going to do dick for the other 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's all part of the kayfabe. It's all part of the show. There's nothing to it. It's empty calories, as they say. It's empty calories.
Empty calories. I love
it. If you established an example of public service, as I was referring to Stein, you'd have some credibility that people would then start paying attention to the Green Party, and maybe it would be a viable option. But given that she doesn't do, or they don't do anything in between, why should we take them?
Do we have information to back that up, though? Is what I would ask, because honestly,
I have no idea what Jill Stein is done.
How many Green Party members are in Congress?
How many?
The mainstream legacy media is not going to cover anything that the Green Party's.
How many Green Party members are there in Congress? How many Green Party members are there in the Senate?
I don't think any.
I don't think there are any.
You're welcome.
I don't think any. That's the
problem. If there were, Ed, if they committed to, instead of showing up every election cycle and ran candidates, I know that there are people that run. One of the friends of the show, Christine Khalil in New Jersey, was running. We had her on the show last year, and she was a very committed, legitimate greenhead. We need people to be demonstrating public service so that when the presidential election comes around, they have something to point to and says, hey, look, this is what I was doing, and I want to continue this. It's like, okay, you actually committed your time to helping people, aside from just going for the brass ring without doing any kind of warm up for it. Because I can't take someone seriously who's just showing up for the election, who's not doing anything the rest of the time, whether it's serving in the Senate, serving in Congress, or even look. I don't remember if Ralph Nader held office, but Ralph Nader did shit he could point to when he ran as an independent. That's why I took Ralph Nader seriously, because he showed he had a record of public service in consumer advocacy that supported his intentions, and I thought some legitimacy and credibility with maybe guiding things in a better direction. I'm going to shut up now. Ed, finish what you were going to say. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt. I want to make sure everyone gets their time. Kira, then back to Ed, because I'm trying to because I know Kira turns into a pumpkin at 10:30.
I do. I do. I actually feel more energized right now than I have all day, because I've been looking forward to this all day, and as the day has progressed, I've gotten more and more energy. So I'm so glad to be here with you guys. I fucking love you guys. Okay. Having said that, here's the next thing I want to talk about with y'all, and I think all of you will have really great insight on it, and it goes directly into this conversation that I want to have, which is like, how do we communicate effectively with most all voters are generally generally in the same place as far as policies go, like the big policies. Healthcare, people want healthcare, right? People want to know that they're taken care of. People want to know that their community is taken care of, and that the air is clean and all of that. But here's what so as I was going on to people's chat threads to let them know that they should be pointing up at the Democrats, like all of the posts that we saw, right, about who was to blame. It's all the racists, right? And it's just like, no, it's the Democrats. Like, it's the Democrats. Point up.
They won't look inward and admit it. They won't admit. The best way for growth is to admit you made a mistake. You need to change. How can we course correct? They don't. Again, Kamala's concession speech was a doubling down.
It was.
They didn't learn their lesson.
So here's what I think it is. And I think this will start to like help us kind of unravel how it is we can approach folks about what it is we want them to like swing our way around, which is, I believe, based on my conversations, Jerry, telling people throughout the last week, hey, you should point up, look at the Democrats, Democratic leadership, is people. I wasn't attacking anybody personally, not the voters, not the people that were posting. I was saying Democratic leadership, and they would get mad at me about. Of
course, because they can't look inward. Because the Democrats are going to protect us, the big daddies. It's like, no, they're not. They haven't. Wake up. It's battered wife syndrome.
And that's what it is. What it is, right? And what I'm recognizing that needs to be broken down is. There's a conflation of their identity with the Democratic Party and the Democrats.
It's their religion.
By extension,
you're attacking them
leadership.
Personally.
And it's just like Democratic leadership is different from you. Just because you are a Democratic voter does not mean you are a Democratic leader and an asshole who has forgotten that the means weren't the ends. Fucking idiots, right? Like
that's the best analysis, Kara, because when you attack the tribe, everyone in the tribe thinks you're attacking them, and it's like, no, it's the principle. It's like this, okay? Not all Jews are Zionists, but all Zionists are Jews. So to be critical of Zionists doesn't mean you're anti-Semitic or anti-Jew, right? Much in the same way, if you're critical of the Democratic Party, it doesn't mean you're critical of the voters. They have to look inward and recognize that those leading their party and representing them are giving them a really, really bad look because they're not paying attention to them and everybody else to just serve themselves and their donors.
That's right. And if you don't vote Democrat, that doesn't make you a bad person, right? Like this identity, this clinging on to Democratic identity, because a lot of people have been Democrats their whole lives, right? And so it's really like, it's really in there, it's really conditioned. And so I think that speaking to that could be an effective way. I mean, I would love to hear also what Warren and Ed have on that insight as well.
Well, I'll tell you, I just saw this thing the other day that said there were more independent voters than there were Democratic voters in this election, which that's very telling. And probably about the same amount. It was like they were the same amount of independent voters as Republicans, right? That's the thing. It's like we're trying to get these Democrats and Republicans, and it's like, no, we need to be going after independents, like and with real issues too, like economy, because that's number one. If you don't even discuss the economy, nobody's gonna fucking listen to you because what do people deal with every day? They deal with high prices, high bills, high gas, everything. The prices are high, everything's high except their wages. Right, and nobody's addressing that. They're providing lip service, but they're not providing actual, like, how can we get these people more money in these jobs? How can we do this and that? And nobody's doing that for these people. So like people like me who don't think electoral politics is worth a shit anyway. How could you convince somebody like me to vote for anybody like that if you're not going to give me a detailed plan on what you're going to do, and not just some rhetoric that you spew out at the rallies. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that I had abstained from voting for 12 years because I was just like, this is I was an activist and organizer. I've been an activist since 2003 and an organizer since 2009, and from 2004 until 2012, I just didn't vote. Because it was such a waste of my time, right?
Well, no, if a candidate doesn't represent your ideals, how can you choose a lesser of two evils? I voted in Gaza and ceasefire, and somebody, you wasted your vote. It's like neither Trump nor Harris represented my values. Why would I award one with my vote when I hold them both in contempt? If my granted, I had the luxury of doing that in Illinois because I'm not happy Illinois, was blue for Kamala. But in the scheme of things, my vote really didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
So I was able to register both these people suck because they're not taking a stand on a genocide right now. But I would have voted the same way if this were a red or a blue. If it were a blue state, I would have voted the same way.
Liana in our chat is very funny. Sorry.
Pardon me?
Liana in our chat made me laugh. The economy's actually great.
Great for who?
Who? Are you kidding?
Great for who?
Great
for Nancy Pelosi, who is one of the best object
I think that was a
creators on Wall
Rodney
Street.
Dangerfield thing where she says, the economy is really great.
Yeah. No, she's being sarcastic, and she's right about this too.
She's being facetious.
Those that are supporting all this for fairy tale reasons, biblical fairy tale reasons, that's one of the big reasons that the world is in so much trouble, because everybody's looking at fairy tales and holy books from ancient times as if any of this shit is relevant right now, and condones people murdering and killing each other in other countries for real estate.
Well, they think the Torah is like a deed, right? It's like a legal deed. It's like,
God's a real estate agent.
Faith don't work in court, y'all.
No, not
you
the
need
Torah,
actual
the Talmud
proof and actual
is the one that's
things.
really wacky. But I mean, we don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of why Zionism is really crazy. But
I don't know much about it. I would just be sitting here learning, which I'm okay with. But I don't know.
I wanted to bring up the fact that our country has gotten used to voting for the lesser evil. Nobody should be doing that. We should have options to vote for the greater good. And yes, although in its current state, our electoral politics are garbage and relative, and for the most part futile on the national level, the greater good in this case, and I'm going to say it again, would have been the Green Party. I'm not saying it to tell people that the Green Party was going to be the end game or the solution to any problems. Like Uncle Warren said, there's only so much she would have been able to do had she, in some alternate dimension, been actually gotten enough votes to get elected. But what I am saying is we have a history in this country of having had a lot more political parties than the ones that we have now. They pared it down to the Democrats versus the Republicans just over the last 60, 70 years or so, because the people in power decided that there were too many people getting in the way of their business deals. So we have so what happened was, capitalism is its own religion in this country. And basically it has two political parties, which is really a uniparty with a red wing and a blue wing.
Yeah.
And so they act in unison. They're like good cop and bad cop, or some of you older viewers remember the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals. And yeah, that's why I call it, and the rest of you probably familiar with me calling it kayfabe, like they do in wrestling, where they basically they're acting. It's performance art. They go out, they go on television, they go on their campaigns, they tell you what you want to hear, and then so that you'll vote for them. And then how much of that stuff that they promised you do they actually follow through on? Not a lot.
Hardly
hardly
little,
any.
and only percentages of the little bits that they
And
actually.
the only and only then if it's okayed by their major donors.
What is that?
So is
It's
that
Jimmy
is that a UF?
That's Jimmy
Oh,
Carter
that's Jimmy
asking
Carter.
if Kamala won.
Yeah, that's
I don't know. That
some
looks a
dark
lot
humor
better
there.
than current
That's the
Jimmy,
dark
though.
humor there.
Jimmy's like,
Yeah, I believe there was a.
They
There was a
Kira,
video
they
were
said
they
he
were posting
voted.
up.
They said he was hanging on to vote.
They
See,
told
don't-
him he
There was a
voted.
video they were passing
Don't you see
around
why you
during,
need me?
the
Don't
Don't you
campaign.
see why you need me? The subversive, leaning on the memes to keep us all sane.
Well, and that's
They
why I
told
said, Jerry,
him
like,
he
shame on
voted.
me for like pushing you to go through my lens, right? Like that's
Okay.
That's
Yeah, I
what
love
have
you.
to
I
say.
have to.
Yeah, for those who don't know, during the campaigns, they were trotting out Jimmy Carter and this little B-roll video clip, and he's basically sitting in a chair or a
He's a
wheelchair or
vegetable.
something, and he's essentially
vegetable. Yeah.
he seems like he's a vegetable or semi-comatose or something. He's not doing well.
No,
Well, he's
and
like
we wish him the
90
best, of course, but
He just turned 100.
but he's a
Oh, I was
worthwhile
like-
political. He's a worthwhile political prop, though.
He's a C note. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, old people are a very good Democratic Party prop. I mean, let's be honest.
Did you guys catch the Know Nothing Yentas over at The View? I hope the sound comes up on this. Let me play this.
Oh, God, love
Well,
them.
it would help if we could regulate social media because one of the biggest offenders is DC and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations of social media.
with Elon.
We're going to protect
Wait a
democracy
minute. Play that
by
again.
subverting democracy.
What?
I'll play it again.
Did you hear
I'll play it
that?
again. Yeah. Here we
This is
go.
the first part.
Think critically.
Well, it would help if we could regulate social media because one of the biggest offenders is DC and Congress have not been able to do one thing in regard to the rogue corporations
Not
of
going to
social
get any
media.
better with Elon
hear
Musk
this?
now in the administration. I want to think.
Now
So
they're
their
talking
answer,
about
Jerry,
they're talking about Twitter. Okay, they're talking about Twitter because they lost the election because free voices on independent media. Or why they lost. That's why they lost, because
Wow,
social
dude.
media made them lose.
That is,
yeah, we
they're
lost
like
because
saying
we
the
didn't
quiet parts
censor
out loud.
enough.
That is saying the quiet parts out loud right there. Literally, that right there. It's like, oh, too many people like are sharing too many ideas.
Yeah.
They want the
This free
tweeters to go
speech-
back.
This free speech thing got a little too real, you know?
Well, they wanted to go back to when Jack was running the shit, right? Before Elon bought it, right? Because you remember during the pandemic, woo, they were booting people left and right on Twitter, and the shitlibs were loving it. And then Elon comes along, and they're not. I mean, they're still censoring people, but it's not.
No,
I don't think it's the same things that they're censoring them over. It's over other
No.
things. But
yeah, what
but
Elon basically
hang on a second,
swapped out-
Ed. Hang on a
Sorry.
second. Hold your breath. I know you haven't talked that much tonight, but let me get in a word. So, and now I forgot what I was talking about. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate that.
You were saying what Twitter is now.
Yeah, they wanted to go back to when Jack was running it because he was just like they loved it the way he was just censoring people left and right. And now that Elon's running the show and it's all like right wing, and they're like, they're all freaking out and shit. So it's just
It's
that's
not
what
all
they
right
want.
wing though. It's
Well,
more
that's what they
voices.
think.
Yeah,
They
I know.
think
That's
it's
how they're
right
painting
wing.
it.
That's
Yeah.
they're painting it as right wing because they're not being able to censor as many people. Because that's the thing. That's the Dems love to do. They just love censoring people because they don't have a legitimate argument. So it's easier to just censor people than to try to actually talk people into your side of the story. You know,
have a policy that people want to have, put in place.
Just empty calories. Just like I said, that's all they're getting is empty calories. They're not getting anything that's fulfilling. They're just getting rhetoric, the same rhetoric they've been getting for decades. And but you got to vote for us, otherwise Orange Man bad. That guy's going to come back. It's like we know what Orange Man did. And now we know what you did. You both suck, right? That's why it's like, what's the alternative? And you're not going to vote for Jill Stein. You're not going to vote for any third party right now. We need a major upheaval in this country. We need a major upheaval. That's why we need to
this
everybody
election,
out
I
in the
think,
streets. If you don't get everybody out in the streets, nothing's going to change.
This has opened the gates for it. As Ed has said a lot of times, withholding your vote is helping you leverage what you need later. If they want to come back to you for your vote, well, what did you do for me last time, asshole? What are you going to do for me this time? That you did this last election.
You can promise in one hand and shit in the other.
The other, and
See
see
what
which
fills up first.
That's one of my favorites.
That shit's gonna fill up first. I'm pretty sure. I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
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 And that's all
Edward,
they've
you
been
say
doing.
something?
Go ahead.
There was you got. I'm looking for something I put in my Facebook tweet, but there was a pundit that went on CNN who so eloquently basically schooled the entire panel on why the Democrats lost, and they were still, in awe that he would even suggest legitimate reasons because they just can't wrap their heads around.
Like the
Here it is.
leadership?
Yeah, that was.
Like,
I
what the
saw that.
fuck?
That was
Like,
a pretty good one.
Here it is.
why
Let me
is it
share it with you
wild?
guys.
Why is it wild to say, hey, the people who ran the campaign are to blame?
For the first time.
Here, I'm sorry, Kira, continue. Let me pause it.
I'm still having a hard time like understanding why people have, look at it and say like, oh, it's the people who ran the campaign. Obviously media has a different intention.
This is not partisan. It's not tribal. It's logic.
Time since, for a Republican, for the first time since 2004. This is a big deal. This isn't backing into the office. This is a mandate to do what you said you were going to do. Get the economy working again for regular working class Americans, fix immigration, try to get crime under control, try to reduce the chaos in the world. This is a mandate from the American people to do that. I think I'm interpreting the results tonight as the revenge of just the regular old working class American, the anonymous American who has been crushed, insulted, condescended to. They're not garbage. They're not Nazis. They're just regular people who get up and go to work every day and are trying to make a better life for their kids. And they feel like they have been told to just shut up when they have complained about the things that are hurting them in their own lives. I also feel like this election, as we sit here and pour over this tonight, is something of an indictment of the political information complex. I mean, we've been sitting around here for the last couple of weeks, and the story that was portrayed was not true. I mean, we were told Puerto Rico was going to change the election. Liz Cheney, Nikki Haley voters, women lying to their husbands. Before that, it was Tim Walz and the camo hats. Night after night after night, we were told all these things and gimmicks were going to somehow push Harris over the line. And we were just ignoring the fundamentals. Inflation, people feeling like that they were barely able to tread water at best. That was the fundamentals of the election. And so I think that both parties should always look at the results of an election and figure out what went right and what went wrong. But I think for all of us who cover elections and talk about elections and do this on a day-to-day basis, we have to figure out how to understand, talk to, and listen to the half of the country that rose up tonight and said, we've had enough. Vote for the first.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
And
That was good.
I wonder how many people on that panel actually took that to heart and paid attention
That was good.
to what he said.
Right over there.
That was good. And that's the kind of communicating, in my opinion,
All right.
that starts to sway people. Jerry, you do you, boo. I'm
going to share what I put up that is what triggered. Here's what I put up that.
But yeah.
Flash flood warnings issued as liberal tears continue to soak the nation.
Okay, that's kind of
See,
funny.
Jerry. Yes, exactly. Nobody's coming to your side that's on the liberal side when you do that. That was my only point. And again,
I know. But it's funny. It's funny.
Yes, but it's too soon, Jerry. They're still crying and filling up that river.
Okay, but guys, do any of you think anybody's really paying attention to what I have to say on my Facebook page? They're not looking at my page. I'm not trying to convert anybody to anything.
Yeah.
I'm just, hey man, I want to be heard. And that's it. You can agree or disagree, but
I think that's a good point too, because I have friends across the political spectrum. I have everything from way like communists all the way to like fascists. I mean, and I communicate with all of them, and we have, we get in debates. You guys know me. I'll speak up, and generally when I take the time to get into a conversation with somebody, I like to, unless I'm like either super stoned or super drunk, I'm always looking for Like, where are we similar? I know I only fixed myself one drink and it's gone, right?
I needed one tonight.
I almost did it, and then I was like, no, I'm ready for a drink. But yeah, like, and I think that the organizing space, we also have a lot of reflecting to do, you know, because like to Warren's point, I think that there's just generally a different. We just got to come up with a different strategy and methodology. And I think that I think that's a great idea, Warren. I think that's a great idea. And I think phone calls to offices are a great idea. And if phone calls are going into senators, Congress people's offices in droves, then that's really powerful too. Because a lot of people don't actually call their legislators at all.
I got to tell people, I thank you for recruiting me, Kira, to help with that People's Lobby event at UIC. You and that group are so ingrained in affecting change and lobbying our public. I'm going to call them our public representatives, not our leaders, down in Springfield. And what you're doing, I wish more people had time to do. I'm sure it's not from lack of support or agreement. It's just that not everybody can do what you and that group is doing. So you guys are doing like absolutely valuable work on behalf of the people of Illinois. And I know that I understand the People's Party is a national organization that is operating state by state, doing the same kind of stuff you guys are.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about them real quickly?
What's that?
You want to tell people about the People's Party real quickly? Because we're talking about how do we get the change going, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm part of the People's Lobby, which is an organization here in Chicago. People's Party / Reclaim Chicago. Reclaim Chicago is the electoral arm, and I'm mostly with the People's Lobby, which is the policy arm. Just because, I do a lot of canvassing and a lot of training on canvassing, but electoral politics is so uninspiring to me, just because of what it is we've dealt with for our entire lifetimes when it comes to our electorate. But we do all kinds of things on the state level through the People's Lobby and the city level. But I mostly work on the state level items. Right now, I am the base building lead for the healthcare task force for the People's Lobby, where we are working to get universal healthcare for Illinoisans, and then ultimately through People's Action nationally. And so that's what we're doing right now. But we are also one of the coalitions responsible for the no cash bail in Illinois, which is actually going really well. Not to mention CEJA, which is the Clean Energy and Jobs Act in Illinois, so that we can be one of the first states that are zero emissions, basically, by who knows what year. I can't remember it at this point. But we've also cut many corporate tax loopholes in the state of Illinois, equaling up to hundreds of millions of dollars. So I was really proud about that. And I joined the organization right on the heels of coming off of Bernie's primary, because I organized in Iowa for Bernie's primary, going door to door. It was one of the best pieces of activism I've ever done in my life, was that one. But yeah, that's the People's Lobby in Illinois. And Warren, I'm gonna think about what you said with the transportation hubs and that sort of thing, because I do think a general strike is in order. And
yeah, absolutely. We've been talking about it for years. How do we get the entire country to be like, we're not talking about it anymore? Shut it all the fuck down, and all of these people that rely on the workers to do stuff are going to realize you don't take care of the workers, you don't pay attention to the working class, you're not going to get your big executive bonuses, okay? Your shareholders are not going to be rewarded. Every other country's done this to success, especially France. You know, it's short of the hauling the guillotines out. Every time I see one of these, national strikes in France, they get shit done.
Yeah, they do.
Unfortunately, I think people are too lazy over here.
Well, think about this: like when the railroads almost they were going to go on strike, example. And then Biden came along and said, "No, you're not going to strike."
Yeah,
that I mean,
they should have said, "Fuck you, Joe. We're striking."
There's many layers.
I don't know what apparatus was in place. Do you know, Warren, why they listened to Joe? Was it management in the union that said?
It's probably the union bosses that went along with it, because that's the thing. It's like that people say, "Well, unions suck." It's like, well, a union is only as good as your union head, right? If you got somebody that's actually fighting for you, that's great. But if you got somebody that's just like, we'll take this little pittance as long as we can go along to get along, that's not going to cut it. So first thing that needs to happen is these unions around the country need to reevaluate their leadership, right? And we need to remind them that like these guys aren't working for you. They're working with the bosses. And you guys need to understand this, right? Like Boeing, for example, recently, their bosses had settled for like a 30-something% raise. And then the workers said, no, we want more. And then they ended up getting like 40-something% for a raise, right? So, and it's not just transportation too. It's your energy providers, right? Like you're like, people that work in electricity and gas and fuel and stuff like that. Anything that runs capitalism, the things, the mechanisms that run capitalism, and the people who are behind those mechanisms are the people we need to be talking to. And then once you get one or two groups to strike, then maybe you get another one to strike, and then you get a snowball effect, right? And the other thing about a general strike too, and this is huge, is that you have to have mutual aid, and we have to have some. I think Ed had talked about this. He and I had talked about this one night. We were talking about how we need to get like these lower level like millionaires to come together, and who are about breaking up the duopoly, who really do want to change the system. And you get these guys in the room and say, hey, look, we need to bankroll these people so they can strike. Because a lot of times, because everything is tied to your job, right? Your health care, they've been telling us for decades, and for the longest time, you gotta get married, you gotta have kids, you gotta get a house. And that just entrenches you into this system. And it's really hard to go against that system when you're like, oh shit, I can't strike. I can't strike my job. My baby ain't going to have health insurance. They're going to take it away.
That's by design.
So we need to figure out these. We need to figure out these systems to put in place to where we can take care of people who can strike, and they don't have to worry about their health care or their pay, right? But we're a long ways away from that because we need to get people to talking first.
We need to get people to talk.
The whole benefits tied to your job system, Warren, I think we can all agree by now, that's by design.
Yeah, it is by design.
I can't control. Well, people don't start their own businesses. People don't go out and do things because
Jerry,
they can't afford.
Business owner, you know the barriers that creates, right? Nobody wants to work for me. Why? Because I can't fucking afford their health insurance. I can't afford mine.
Yeah.
And it's like, I do good work in the world, and people want to do good work in the world. And if they can't get health insurance through that good work, then they're going to go do like whatever product they need to go sell.
And even if it's just the shittiest insurance, they don't care. It's still insurance, right? It's still some way of lessening their healthcare finances. Right. And that's part of the propaganda. They make you think that you're getting all this shit and you're not getting anything. Right. No. It's all propaganda.
And you can't give Medicare because that would be socialism. Let me tell you guys, I don't have to tell you, you know this. As a one-legged gimp, I'm on Medicare and it works. I spoke about this at the March for Medicare for All when we all met each other years ago. But isn't it ironic that the only people eligible for healthcare are seniors, veterans who've gone through the worst health challenges, or disabled people who also have gone through the worst healthcare challenges? God, wouldn't it be cool if you offered at least a public option for preventative care? You allow people to buy into Medicare if that's what they wish, because Medicare is actually a fucking decent system that does serve those who are eligible for it, to get the preventative care, to see the doctors you need to take care of yourself ahead of time so that you don't become disabled or, lose your health or a limb or something because you went off to war to get health coverage or education or whatever else. It's like, it's only offered after people have made incredible sacrifices or suffered incredible losses. And that's not the way it should be. That's not, a bleeding heart liberal stance. Healthcare is a right. I had an argument with a dear friend of mine, and maybe using the expression "it's a right" is the wrong way to define it, but everybody has a right to good health. Okay. And a lot of people think, well, you need to pay for it. You need to work hard to earn. No, you don't. because the more you keep people healthy in the society, the more productive they are, the less medical debt they go into, the less medical costs are incurred because people are taking care of their health ahead of time if they had plans that let them get the care that they needed before they got sick. And oh, well, you got sick, you got disabled, you've got a respiratory disease. Well, now you can apply for disability, and now we'll give you Medicare when it's too late and you don't have that much time left.
That wouldn't be good
Jerry,
for farm, you know.
Jerry, I'm glad you brought up healthcare because it helps us transition a little bit to a thing I wanted to talk about, and that's how do we convince a Trump administration to give us things that we need. Okay.
You told me about this earlier today, and I love it. So I'm going to shut up now, but I just want to pat you on the back. I love how you set this up, how this is possible.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, we all know that he's a big narcissist. Like anytime he gets a chance to take credit for something, he's all over it. And if you find either find the people that he will listen to that can present these ideas to him, or someone can present ideas to him to make him understand that it's in his best interest and it makes him look good to do these things, then you might be able to get him to do things that he otherwise wouldn't do. And as an example, I'm going to use something that's based on a parody that I created during his last presidency. If you don't mind, I'm going to bring this thing up on the
Show
screen.
him how it will reflect his presidency in a great light that makes him look great, and maybe he'll pay attention.
So problem one, how do we get Trump to give us a national health care system where everybody gets free health care? And the answer is Space Force. So, and I don't know if anybody wants to read this in Trump's voice, or I can try to do it.
I'll read it for you, Ed, because I've been getting very, very good at my Trump imitation. Get on board the Space Force. Train to wellness. Plan well D. Space Force Planetary Wellness Division.
For Donald. Yeah.
It's the best. It's the very best. It's strong. It's powerful. It's the best defense for the Space Force is a healthy planet, and a healthy planet needs healthy people in it. The hugely limitless defense budget gives us the incredible opportunity to provide absolutely free health care to everyone on planet America. We will save the planet with Space Force.
And it's signed Donnie Shortfingers McBigley Pants, CEO of America. Okay. But anyway, the point being, you convince him and you make him understand that it's true. A healthy public is a more productive public. And he's all Mr. Capitalism. Let's make all these businesses thrive and do all these good things. You know how you do that? You give everyone health care.
Yep.
Yeah, business owners will thrive, especially small business owners, when everybody else healthcare. Trust me.
If people aren't struggling.
Yeah.
I want to, getting back to the first point that launched this inspiration to do tonight's show, to Kira, pointing out I was being insensitive, and I was, even though I was gloating. One of my friends on Facebook, because, they earned it, right? They earned this loss. One of my friends on Facebook is a far better man and writer than I am. His name's Aaron Fontana. After I, purged my bile the way I do, he wrote this, and I shared it on my page. I want to share it with everyone because I think it's very insightful, and I think it's very relevant. This is from Aaron Fontana. I'm going to say this and not argue about it. I don't like Trump. I don't like Biden. I don't like Harris. In 2016 and 2020, I supported Bernie, and he was the last Democrat I voted for. And if things don't change, I'll never vote for another Democrat ever again. This is what got me, because it's like, yeah, Aaron, you're preaching to the choir. I exactly the same place as he was when I saw this and said, I got to share it. I have never voted for a Republican. This year, I voted third party, the candidate who, unlike almost every single Democrat candidate, clearly stated that they were for universal health care, for a living wage, and against the ongoing U.S. wars and the killing of civilians and children overseas enabled by U.S. tax dollar funding, our tax dollars, our money. I didn't feel great about voting because I knew my candidate couldn't win. And as I've stated before on social media and to anyone who will listen, voting really doesn't change a lot in this country. And if it did, they wouldn't let us do it, as the old saying goes. For me, The Republican Party's always been a non-starter. As for the Democrats growing up, I've watched this party claim to represent the working class while year after year it economically moved to the right to appease its true constituents, the same billionaire class that owns the Republican Party. I saw Bill Clinton get NAFTA passed, which cut the legs out from under unions in the U.S. when Senior Bush couldn't make it happen. Clinton also went on to deregulate the banks, which caused the crash 10 years later, and the media, which has made it so that today 5 multinational corporations now own something like 90% of the quote-unquote news we are consuming. I saw Barack Obama win on a mandate of hope and change and then turn around and hire his cabinet directly from an email by a higher-up at Citigroup.
Yep.
Fact. Yep. You can find that on Google. I also saw him add 5 wars to the 2 we already had at the time while throwing us the insufficient bone of quote-unquote healthcare plan based on Romney Care, which was essentially a giveaway to the insurance lobby. And by the way, it's my understanding the insurance lobby helped draft Obamacare. It was said that he killed the public option behind closed doors to appease that same lobby. It's my understanding at the urging of Zeke and Rahm Emanuel, who was at that time his chief of staff. The list goes on and on. Year after year, I've also watched my fellow so-called liberal friends accept more and more of these indignities, cruel austerity policies, the privatization of things that shouldn't be privatized, and wars pushed by the Democratic Party because, well, what are you going to do? The Republicans are worse? Mm-hmm. Of course, these liberal friends, usually at least moderately well off, would never likely have to suffer the consequences of these cruel neoliberal democratic policies, unlike half the country who is poor or living near the poverty line. In the richest country in the history of the world, no less. This last election cycle, all over social media, I saw liberals literally downplay a genocide enabled by the Democratic Party because we have to stop Trump, because now is not the time, because this is the most important election of our lifetime, et cetera, ad nauseum, ad infinitum. Online, I saw liberals say some of the nastiest things to folks I know who refuse to support Harris. Things like how they hope someone's gay or minority cousin gets put in a camp when Trump wins. I've seen the same bullshit. Awful, awful things like that. And people wonder why lefties say, scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds. Again, this is not to say American conservatives aren't fascist coded. They are, but one expects more from liberals, or at least they used to.
They used to.
I would say I would push back a little bit because I do know some good conservatives. Not a lot, but there are some. So my only point of disagreement with Aaron, all respect to him, and I think a very, very eloquent essay. The Democrats have found their boogeyman in Trump, and that's all they seem to want to talk about. And don't get me wrong, Trump is a boogeyman. To me, he's the living embodiment of a sundowning empire that refuses to progressively move into the future. So it looks to the nostalgia of a past that barely even existed that was most certainly worse for marginalized people, which is exactly where we're going again. Reagan era? By the way, does that description sound familiar? Does it sound like fascist movements from other countries from past times? Well, it should, because it is. And you should be scared. I certainly am. Historically speaking, when there's an absence of a leftward movement that addresses the grievances of the working class ends up gravitating towards the right. They have no other place to go. And well, quote, at least the Republicans are talking about jobs in the economy. That's at least how the thinking goes. And I'm not saying it's correct thinking. I'm just saying that's the way it is. Actual lefties, not liberals, have a saying about how liberals enable fascism because they will side with capitalism before ever conceding a single issue to the left. Social issues such as gay marriage, which, please don't get me wrong, are extremely important, aside, isn't this what is happening in this country? Isn't the Democratic Party, the alleged party of the working class, doing everything in its power to keep their capitalist donor money trolley train moving forward while doing everything it can to avoid taking on those moneyed interests for the betterment of American workers? And aren't liberal Democratic Party supporters going along with this because of their own fears of losing the things they've gained under this clearly corrupt system? Anyway, my question to you is this. When will you decide to fight, if not for yourself, then for the people in this country who decade after decade sink further and further into poverty and want both parties and want, because both parties are busy courting the interests of corporations and special interests? When will you decide voting in itself is not enough, or at least that you should demand something for your vote, instead of blindly saying blue no matter who, or but Trump, or whatever the current saying is? When will you see that if your ruling class administrators from both sides of the aisle can continue to screw over the so-called least of us, it's only a matter of time before it will arrive at your door? I don't know what else to say. I am too upset. about the state of things. In closing, I would just add that maybe it's time for you to consider stopping arguing with your idiot neighbor about what tool of the capitalist ruling class they're voting for, and maybe see what you have in common and how you're both being shut out of the system that, for the most part, represents only the billionaires who own this country, the same people who gave grotesque amounts of money to people like Harrison Trump, while Harrison Trump were also asking for your last $5. Peace and love. Aaron, I doubt he's watching. I don't know if he knows about our program, but I'm going to send him a link. No one could say it better than Aaron Fontana, who's also an independent journalist here in the city. And I'm very, very glad he penned that to put on his Facebook for everybody to see, consume, and think about.
Yeah, I thought that was really well written too.
Yeah, he's right. You got to find common. You have to find common ground with people. You can't just say, "Oh, you're stupid," "Oh, you're evil for not voting for this person," or whatever. You have to take voting out of the equation first and just get down to the basics with people and say, "Look, what as an American, what would you like to change? Right? What do you want to see different?" And if they say, "Well, I'd like to make more money," or "I'd like to have cheaper bills," or "I like this," I say, "Okay, let's find out solutions for that. What else?" And you keep asking these questions, asking them what they want. And then people will start, if you're consistent enough, people will start realizing, hey, this person actually legitimately wants to change things and sounds like they're interested in what my needs are. And that's like he said, talk to your neighbors, talk to people that are outside your comfort zone. I mean, yeah, we could sit here in the echo chamber all day long and talk to each other about the shit. But if we're not talking to people who actually need to hear it, we're just that's all we're doing.
Look who woke up November 6th, Warren.
Oh, yeah. It should come as no great surprise that the Democratic Party, which has abandoned working class people, will find that the working class has abandoned them. I'm a cuck. Sorry.
While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, and they're right. As long as they don't stand up against your good friend Joe, right? He was compromised somehow. I think it had to do with his wife's nonprofit.
That second primary was embarrassing. It was very sad and he was like helping Biden during the debate. I was just like, what are you doing? No, you're supposed to blow this guy out of the water. Like,
now, Itonic says, yet Bernie was out there stumping for Kamala. I have not seen an interview with Bernie over the past 4 years where he ever looked happy supporting Biden or Kamala. It's like his nuts are in a vice. They've got, I can't imagine they have something on him as much as I think they have something that they can use against him. And my thought is that his wife's nonprofits had some kind of a financial scandal that was really a nothing burger. But I'm sure they told him, this is going to be like Watergate. If you don't get in line, come to heel and support Biden and Kamala and anyone we tell you to support, because if you don't, we're going to make this situation with your wife's nonprofits, this financial irregularities, into something that's absolutely going to destroy your reputation, your wife's reputation for the rest of your lives. That's the only thing I can wrap my head around as to what would this man do to come to heel this way and literally look like he's uncomfortable every time he has to stump or come forward and say something on their behalf.
I agree that he looks uncomfortable in doing that. Yeah, and again, Warren, like we got to take the voting out of our conversations, because it's like that just ends up pitting us against each other, like automatically. The moment we start talking about politics in the context of Republican, Democrat, conservative, leftist, shit lib, blue MAGA, far left, right? Like the moment we start pigeonholing ourselves into different groups and setting ourselves apart, that's when the conversation starts to end, right? Because it's just like, oh, we're different. And it's just like, truly, like, we're not. My mom is a Trump supporter, and we have tons of political conversations, and I don't always maneuver those conversations successfully, but generally my goal in my conversations with my mom, and they're very difficult because her logic makes no sense to me, right? I'm just maneuvering, like trying to find common ground. So she'll start talking shit about Nancy Pelosi, and I'll be like, I can't stand her too. What do you hate about her? Oh, you know what I don't like? This and this and this and this. And I'll see my mom literally wrestle with the idea of agreeing with me, because she knows we're in two different camps. We can't possibly agree, you know? And when I get to see her in that sort of uncomfortable zone of wrestling with the fact that she's agreeing with me, that's when I know, like, I've done something right in my communication.
Yeah, the fight is worth
what we got to start doing, right? Some of my I've knocked on over 1,000 doors canvassing in my political volunteerism, and some of my best conversations, like, again, especially on the Bernie campaign in 2015, I went door to door in Iowa, and I talked to voters for the primaries in Iowa, and I had some of the best conversations with conservatives in Iowa. I'm from Iowa, by the way, so I had a little bit of an in, but it's lovely, right? Like, you know, I sat on a front stoop and I drank a beer with these two guys, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're like the most awesome, like, left-wing person we've ever met." And I'm like, actually, a lot of us are really fucking cool, right? It's just that, like, we're not talking. We're just not talking.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you know, I'm from the South, and it's like I was just like basically drowning in conservatives. How I became left-leaning, I don't know. I mean, my parents weren't really political that much. They just kind of said, you know, find your own way when it comes to that stuff. And I was around a lot of some lefties, but mostly conservatives. And I would listen to them. And a lot of times, the most things they complain about is like economic issues, or if it was just like, you know, the government getting their business. And, you know, because some of them would say like, well, the government is too big. I'd love to see it just like go away. I said, well, I don't know if I want it to go away, but I do want it to be more manageable by the people, right? That's the thing, is it's not a representative government anymore, at least not a representative of the people. It's more representative of the oligarchy. But when you talk to people in terms like that, it's instead of saying like me against you, when you make it us against them, you know, and you point to when you point out the propaganda that both sides get, they see that, they hear that, and they go, yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard people say that too, and I've heard the politicians say that too. And you say, yeah, it's all rhetoric, dude. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Yeah. And they're using that to divide us. And when you get on that level with them, they're like, holy fuck, this dude actually does care about me, and he's coming to me and telling me this shit because he does care, right? And that's the thing. There's no, when you go around, a lot of times when people go around, they try to talk about these politicians and stuff. There's no sincerity. It's almost like they're just doing the talking points thing. And people know talking points by now. They may not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but they know a fucking talking point when they hear one, because they've heard so many talking points, and they are just dying. They are so thirsty for some truth from their government, any sort of truth that could actually help them. And if you give them just a little taste, like I said, with like the strikers, you got to let it snowball. They'll tell, you know, it's like Ego East. They'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. But you have to start somewhere, and you have to plant those seeds, and you have to be patient. That's the main thing. You got to be patient.
I think some of those seeds were planted a while back. We had a few false starts. I mean, some of you are old enough to remember Occupy Wall Street.
Oh, I participated.
That's for some of you who aren't familiar. That's where we started hearing phrases like it's the 99% versus the 1%, and that resonated during Bernie Sanders' first run in 2015, and so that version of Bernie is the one that was giving us the platform that everybody really wanted, and something happened to him after that, during the convention or afterward. I mean, Jerry talks about how maybe they threatened his wife. Maybe something happened in the convention where they threatened his family, or who knows what. We can speculate on that. But what I'm thinking is he really hasn't been the same since then.
No.
And it's really a
broken
shame.
Shell. He seems like a broken shell of a man.
Yeah, he's basically at the end of his entire career, and his legacy is that he has devolved into a fraud. I don't think he wanted to go there. I don't think that's where he wanted to end up, but that's where he is at this point. We can't trust him. anymore. Anybody who thinks that we're all still on the Bernie train, you're sorely mistaken. You need to wake up from that delusion.
Yeah.
Oh, Ed, Kira, Warren, I've got some breaking news. Kamala calls McDonald's to ask if her old job is still available. With the reality setting in of her devastating defeat, Kamala Harris called up McDonald's to see if she could by chance have her old job back. Yeah, I'm available, said Kamala, watching an interview replay. Cashier, drive-through, you onion lady, stick me in a clown suit. I just need a job.
Now, Jerry,
McDonald's had reportedly turned Kamala down. Am I pronouncing her name right, or am I being
No, you got Kamala.
racist? Okay. At publishing time, McDonald's, remember how they did that? If you're pronouncing her name wrong, you're a racist. At publishing time, McDonald's had reportedly turned Kamala down as she never worked there in the first place and could not answer a single question on the McDonald's application.
Oh
Too soon, Kira? Too soon?
Too soon.
Actually, she did work at McDonald's. She was in the 1970s playground. She dressed up as Ronald McDonald and scared the fuck out of a bunch of kids. If they didn't get stuck in the Officer Big Mac, like I did in high school. That's a long
It's
story.
gonna be an ongoing joke between you and me. Too soon.
Not soon enough.
Yeah, while we're on the subject of fast food, I want to remind everybody that every full-time job should be paid a living wage, even a job at McDonald's.
Right.
I love how people say like flipping burgers, like that's like nothing. Like,
right.
Oh yeah.
I
Basically,
flip burgers.
it's
hard work.
You're
That's
not
work,
worth
baby.
because you flip burgers. You didn't go to college. You're less deserving of like making a living wage to support yourself. As me, who's too lazy to cook, but is going to drive through and get food from you while you're working over a day. Okay, yeah, Donald Trump worked the French fry fryer. That's still a dangerous setup when you're working over a greasy fry pit. Okay, there is people have filed workman's comp claims because of that.
All right, and I see I'm getting a little pushback in the chat here on my statement here, and let me explain this to all of you really quick, because some of you aren't familiar with where the minimum wage came from. The minimum wage came from a law called the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. Yes, it's that old. And it was always intended to be a living wage. You worked a full day's work, no matter what you did. You were able to earn a living and do whatever you needed to do in your life. You know, you could keep a roof over your head. I mean, you didn't necessarily make enough to buy a house right away, but at least maybe you could afford an apartment payment or something. You know, about I think 60% of people are still living paycheck to paycheck. I think most of the apartment rents in this nation are still unaffordable for most people. And it's like, yeah, you want to be skeptical about that, because for decades they have kept the minimum wage stagnant or suppressed at a low amount because of pressure from businesses who didn't want to pay people a living wage anymore.
And you don't You don't deserve to live in poverty, Ed, because you flip burgers. Constitutional conservative. What do you consider a living wage to flip burgers? Itonic answered right before you posted. Flipping burgers or sweeping floors, living wage is owed. Period.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, and it's not like McDonald's can't afford it. If you look at what they're paying workers in, European countries, they're paying them far more than what they're paying them here, and the price of the food is the same.
And let's add this too, Kira. For every time they say if you pay employees a higher wage, the bill's going to go up. Your food's already gone up now. I mean, I went to a drive-thru the night before the show. A burger, fries, and a Dr. Pepper, $12 fucking. Mm-hmm. But in the past, okay, the entire economy is like this now. But anytime in the past they said they couldn't afford to pay their employees in the McDonald's more money because it would drive up the price of burgers. Why wasn't the price of burgers or fast food driven up every time they gave the McDonald's CEO $1 million bonuses?
Exactly.
Right? That didn't drive the price up. Why does that guy deserve a bonus while his people are living in poverty on poverty wages? And you're claiming that to give them a wage hike would drive the prices up. Because if those millions going to that CEO aren't driving the pricing up, you're full of shit.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
and a lot of that is it's propaganda. Sorry, Kira, just really quick. A lot of those arguments are based on American propaganda, capitalist propaganda, because other countries have forced companies like, for example, McDonald's. Don't mean to pick on them that much today, but to raise their wages to a living wage in countries like Australia, for example, and the prices of their food didn't go up.
Exactly.
I want to address. Oh, go ahead, Kira.
I was going to say, yeah, because it's a very wealthy corporation. And the reason these CEOs are getting millions and millions of dollars is because they're profiting massively. And they're profiting massively because...
And don't forget the government subsidies that they use for stock buybacks to artificially inflate the price of their company. I just want to push back a little bit on our constitutional conservative friend here, who has probably never flipped burgers in his fucking life. And if he has, he probably forgot what hard work it is. You're not just flipping burgers, dude. You're also cleaning floors. You're also dealing with incompetent management. You're dealing with hostile customers. And it's like, well, if you don't like the job, then you can leave. A lot of people don't have many options for jobs. A lot of these jobs need college education, and they can't afford. And who can afford a college education these days without going bankrupt, right? So to say that people don't deserve a living wage for flipping burgers is just insane. It's work, dude. It's like wherever you're living, you need to be able to afford to live in that town. Otherwise, what are you going to do, right? Compare it to some other jobs, like a car dealership, right? I mean, how it's like, do people who work at a car dealership need a living wage, right? You don't necessarily need a car in a city. It's nice to have, but you don't need it, right? You don't need a burger, but that's not the point. The point is the people are working. They are working. And if there's money available in these corporations to give them a fair wage, they should be giving them a fair wage, and they're not doing it because they're greedy motherfuckers. That's plain and simple.
Super. It is
and
that.
You're gonna,
Oh, in junior high, you flip burgers. Oh, did your mommy help you? Fuck off, dude. You don't know what the fuck you're doing.
All right,
let's. Where we at?
Warren, it's my cousin. I know he's not making sense right now.
What the hell?
There's also the valid point of automation, burger flipping robots and such is that's going to happen in every industry. So,
hey, guy, a trade or skill school costs money too, right? And that's probably what these people are doing is they're working dollars so they can afford a trade school or something like that. And they can't do it if they're not getting paid enough. Get it through your fucking head, dude. All right.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So when AI and the robots and the burger flipping robots especially come, it's going to be a problem for everybody when all the robots and automated things start taking over our jobs because capitalism doesn't care about people. Okay. So it's going to be a problem in America if we don't figure out a solution to this that still gives people some kind of income to keep a roof over their heads. So either, there's only going to be so many jobs for the people who are fixing the robots that are fixing the other robots.
Yeah, it's all going to be a moot point anyway when everything gets replaced by robots, and then your constitutional conservative friend there is going to be like, well, we shouldn't have robots. Well, you should have thought about that before, when you were bitching about people flipping burgers and actually getting paid what they were worth.
At least that McDonald's will make way more money. All right, you guys. It's 10:04.
All right, really quickly before we leave, I want to share with everybody who really won the election.
It's the infusion
Bragging
of foreign
about it.
affairs that's taking the 2024 race into an entirely new phase.
I'm a firm believer that no candidate wins an election on their own.
They're bragging about getting paid off by AIPAC.
What I love about AIPAC is that they get behind people and they win.
What?
Can you hear Netanyahu? We helped our friends win. That's why we control the country.
APAC comes in. It's like someone threw you a life raft.
This week, the group secured its first major victory of the election season. Fresh off of that victory, APAC has already set sights on its next target.
Well, you know what we got to say to APAC?
Anyway, you get the idea.
Wow, what is that from, Jerry?
That's an APAC. That's it. I'll continue it. APAC. This is like a marketing piece from APAC, promoting. I'll let it go to the end, and you'll see.
They are.
The results are in. George Latimer defeats incumbent Jamal Bowman.
Incumbent Republican Bob Good has been defeated by challenger State Senator John McGuire.
Missouri Democratic Congresswoman Cori Bush, known for being part of the Squad, will no longer serve in Congress next year.
To folks in the pro-Israel community, we have no choice but to stay engaged and stay in this fight.
I just want to extend my sincere gratitude to this community for helping me get to Congress and assure everybody that you're going to have a long-term friend.
Wow.
It's
fucking
Jerry, shameless.
Wait, hold on.
It's like a propaganda from the boys with Vought Industries.
Is APAC, Jerry, is APAC Russia? Is that Russian interference in our elections? Is it Russia that owns APAC? No.
It's the Zionists.
No, wait, no. That's
I'm sorry.
in our elections.
I can't say that. It means I'm anti-Semitic. When they're bragging about it, they're bragging about buying off our politicians.
Mm-hmm. They sure are.
Odd.
Thank you, Liana. Back to our other point. Yeah, you're right. It is grotesque.
Yeah,
that's the perfect word for it.
Oh, but I'm sure Constitutional Conservative loves that, though. So he probably wants it lower. He probably doesn't want a minimum wage because, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? You know what that phrase means, right? It's a bullshit phrase because you can't pull yourself up. You can't pull yourself up.
You can't pull yourself up if you don't have the boots to begin with, Warren.
Exactly.
Look, Lou, I know you're having
they don't
trouble
work. They're
wrapping your head around this, but if $25 an hour is where the minimum wage should be, then yes, that's what people should be making.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that is what the wage
is based on in a fryer, dude. They're doing all kinds of other work in there. I know it's been 100 years since you worked in a burger joint. You probably worked in a joint when they actually invented burgers. But, in this day and age, 2024, when shit is like so expensive, you can't afford anything. You should be paid for working. It doesn't matter what the work is.
Yeah.
It's work.
And
a living minimum wage needs to be commensurate and equal with the cost of living. The cost of living has risen exponentially, obscenely over the past several decades, while the minimum wage has stayed down here. So how do you claim that burger flippers now deserve to stay at the level of what they were paid decades ago while the cost of living has gone up? Their wages should go up along with the cost of living, period. And when you look at the fact that the living wage should be minimally $25 an hour to maintain with what the cost of living is, this is a class judgment. Well, you're not smart enough, or you're not educated enough to do anything else but flip burgers at McDonald's. You deserve to live in poverty. That's unfortunately how people have been indoctrinated and propagandized, because that kind of hard work is marginalized and dismissed because there's no education attached to it, or there's no trade training attached to it, even though you need to be trained to run a fryer and do all these other things that Warren's talking about.
Yeah, I was going to say, I worked in the restaurant industry for 10 years, and it takes a lot of skill. I'm just gonna say that it takes a lot of skill. I worked as a cocktail waitress. I worked at a Ruby Tuesday. I worked at a fine dining sushi restaurant. It all takes a massive amount of training and a massive amount of skill.
And constitutional conservative. Trump's a smart guy. Right? It took a smart guy to run the fryer at McDonald's for that publicity stunt that he did. If a smart guy was able to do it, doesn't that speak to the intelligence of a fry cook? Just saying.
All right, guys.
Kira's got to go.
All right.
I'm gonna head out.
All right.
I just get up at an ungodly hour. I get up at 4:45, 5 in the morning. So I gotta head out, and Mark has COVID.
No apology necessary, dear. How much fun the week! I don't know how often we're going to be doing shows again. It is a nice rush to be back.
It is
we'll
nice.
see.
You should
We'll
do
see how
more
it goes.
often.
Great to be
More
here.
often, please. Thank
We
you.
might not be on a regular schedule, but certainly I've talked with Kira when she has time, along with Ed and Warren. You're invited too. I think you're a great voice on this program, even though I know you've got your own stuff going on.
I
Before
always make
Kira
room
leaves,
for Jello. It's fine.
all right. Before Kira leaves, I'll just say to our viewers, hopefully we'll be back again soon as a group. But Kira, head on out. We're going to continue for a little while longer. And I'm just glad that you sparked the return tonight, Kira, with the text messaging.
Thing, but then it was so much, and I was just like, I'm going to reach out. And then I'm glad that this is what it created. So
Absolutely.
I just gotta, when I speak up, magic happens, right? So that's
Absolutely. She's our magic girl.
All right,
I love you. Tell
so
Mark
much
and everyone hello. Okay.
Bye, Kira.
Happy
Good night,
Friday.
man.
Again.
Mwah. All right.
Well, hey, that so far so good, I'd say, with the return show, right, Jerry?
We've had a lot bottled up for a while, right? Although I do want to tell people we did cover the UIC People's Lobby public meeting a month ago. You can watch that on the YouTube channel. While we've been down and not coming back live, I felt it's important to provide some public service where we can, since we can't do all the work that Kira and People's Lobby is doing or other stuff. I'm always, happy to contribute video services and put it on our channel so that people who can't attend that stuff in person can hear and see what's going on. So if you have some time, it was a 2.5 hour meeting. Ed was there with me. It was a really good get together. And they had a lot of elected representatives there committing to a lot of the mandates that People Lobby's trying to put forward on behalf of all the citizens of Illinois. And we also went out, and Warren helped me out when the Democratic Convention was in town. We went and heard at Union Park, why were people there? What was important to them? It was brief, but again, it's like, it was important to try to put this channel to good use where we can. So.
Yeah, just addressing again what he said in here. Not everybody's getting $25 an hour, dude. I mean, you're getting these wild talking points all over the place, and that's why I can't take you seriously. If you want to have this one-on-one conversation, we can, and maybe I can school you on how the real world is, because I've lived in the real world. I've done blue-collar jobs, I've done white-collar jobs, I've done all kinds of jobs, and I've seen people get screwed. People who had education, people who had the skills, the high-level skills, get screwed out of pay as well. So it has nothing to do with that. And so if McDonald's can afford to pay their people $25 an hour, they should fucking do it, because $25 in this day and age is pretty bare minimum for how. Have you even seen anybody out there seeing the prices of shit? How can you afford shit?
$13 for a burger, fries, and a medium Dr. Pepper tonight before the show. And by the way, thank you for admitting it was a gimmick stunt. I'm surprised you admitted that Trump was like playing to his audience here with the gimmick at McDonald's over the French fryer. But
yeah, because being over a hot French fry stove for 8 hours or 10 hours a day, depending if somebody didn't show up for their shift, is just so easy to do, and people like that just don't deserve to get paid for that kind of work, because they don't have an education, and it's just it's not a CEO job or anything like that. We need to reevaluate that's part of breaking down this dumb system that we have and rebuilding it to where it actually benefits the people, where you don't have to have $25 an hour for workers. You can just bring the prices down, because you're using other means of adjusting the economy. So we can have that conversation too, if you'd like.
Yeah, but, you're right, Uncle Warren. I mean, if gas and grocery prices and rent prices and mortgage prices came down, then sure, you can lower the cost of living for a living wage. But right now, everything's through the roof. And I wanted to provide a little context. During parts of my sabbaticals between full-time employment, I sometimes look for jobs in the food industry. So I get these emails that give me lists of current available jobs. If any of you out there are looking for something in the food industry, there's a job listing thing called culinary agents. And I get emails almost daily from them, and they are now including how much the pay is for each job that's available. And why are they doing that on job listings? Because otherwise people aren't going to apply. And I am seeing, and some of you may be shaking your heads and go and be in disbelief, there are jobs offering, $20 an hour for a line cook. One guy who's a slightly higher chef position from $30 to $45 an hour. So it's not unheard of to see something approaching a living wage in a food industry job today. So they are there. It's just you may not be able to get them right away. I know dishwasher jobs are probably paying between $17 and $20 an hour. That's a hard freaking job.
Mm-hmm.
Those are hard jobs. Everything in the restaurant industry, I mean, those people are insanely hard and good, really skilled workers learning how to do things in the restaurant industry in every level, from the back of the house to the front of the house.
Also, people can stuff their faces with food in the front.
So definitely, if you're thinking of a job in the food industry, I mean, it's hard work, and there's probably a lot of hoops you got to go through. You got to get your food service certification for food safety and all that stuff now. But a lot of the restaurants will pay for that training for you.
I've invited Constitution. Oh, by the way, I don't think it's any secret by now. Anyone who's been a longtime viewer of the show, Constitutional Conservative is my cousin Lou, my first cousin Lou. Despite the fact I sometimes say I don't want people to know we're related, I say that sarcastic. Lou's got a good heart. I've seen it in action. I don't understand how that good heart I see in action translates with. It's almost like I sense he's playing a character for fun when he comes in here, because I know in his heart he's done good things, and without it being an act. I mean, so I think this is a good example too of where, it's easy to start engaging in the personal attacks and getting very, very volatile. And I think, Warren, you and Lou might have an interesting conversation. Maybe we should try to get Lou on a show in the future so we can actually have the debate on the air and keep it civil, Lou. Let's not, I mean, because Lou and I have had really civil conversations, and I think Lou is probably surprised at how I've kind of come around and said, well, we got Trump. Hopefully I'm wrong, and maybe he'll surprise us on some things, and maybe I'll be wrong too, and he won't surprise us on something. But I'm willing to have an open mind, and I'm willing to criticize the Democratic Party, Lou, in ways that you're not willing to criticize or haven't been willing to criticize the Republican Party in the past. Okay? We need to do the same thing equally across the board and hold them all accountable, and not do the whole tribal Republicanism or conservatism is my religion. Therefore, if you attack me, you're attacking my tribe. Because Lou is a good guy, but the party he supports most of the time sometimes does some bad shit that I don't think really demonstrates what I sense are Lou's values.
He's a good
party.
He's a good guy, but he needs to learn some shit. He says, do any of you own a business where you have employees and need to make payroll?
I can't afford employees in my business because it's so expensive. Right. Go ahead, Warren. Yeah.
Point, Lou, is it your employees' pay is part of the operating expenses of your business, much like your overhead, like the cost if you're leasing or if you're, whatever you're doing with the building or any of your equipment, it's the same thing. So if you can't afford the employees, then you shouldn't be in business. Okay. I mean,
you should do it yourself,
or maybe have a business that can afford people instead of trying to rob them and try to get slave labor out of them. So, and this $25 an hour thing, you can do that in New York. You can do that in the major cities. You can do $25 an hour easily because these corporations, they're loaded, baby. They are loaded. And the thing is all it would do, it was take away a little bit of the profit that these people get. That's it. They take away a little bit of the profit, but they're greedy. Yeah. And we have to address that. We have to address the greed, and nobody's doing that.
Because America thinks greed is good. because all the capital,
Well,
many people who support Trump and just dogmatically follow him watch The Apprentice, and they think they are temporarily inconvenienced millionaires. They support all these policies of the rich because they assume someday they're going to be millionaires. It's never going to happen.
No.
So start looking around you and supporting the people around you that are working as hard as you are and standing up for them instead of this imaginary fantasy that you're going to be a millionaire like Trump. Therefore, you have to be greedy and you have to be cruel and you have to treat other people like shit, or claim that people who work in what you consider a substandard job don't deserve or have earned poverty wages, so that you can shove fries and burgers into your mouth because you don't have time to like cook for yourself at home.
Yeah. It's a survival of the fittest mentality. It's not a human. It's not anything regarding humanity. It's more animalistic.
It's inhumane.
It's inhumane. It's literally inhumane. It's animalistic. It's just kill or be killed. And it's like, I thought we were a society. I thought we were a society that was supposed to progress, right? As you know, innovate and bring new things to the world, new good things. And we're not doing that shit. We're just, there's people just like making gobs and gobs of money, and everybody else is pretty much starving for the most part. And it's just insane. We have to get that balance back. Otherwise, the whole country's just going to go under. We're going to be.
We're in the last stages of empire right now. Yeah. I mean, literally, it's like this is the fall of the Roman Empire all over again. And we did it the same way. By neglecting and looking past and not taking care of our citizens. We got money to shovel to Ukraine. We got money to shove to Israel. They've got the health care we don't have. Our homeless veterans don't have. Because why? It serves empire so long as they can exploit the resources in those countries that they are aligning with NATO to go invade. We weren't on the air when Tucker Carlson did his interview with Vladimir Putin. And I've never been a huge fan of Tucker Carlson. I can't get over his girlish giggle, number one, but I also just think he's another mean-spirited asshole more often than less. But I give him credit. He did a great interview with Putin. And what came out of that interview with Putin, here's a statesman who basically laid out the history of what happened before Ukraine so we could understand why we got here and why this is a NATO issue on behalf of American empire, because there are oil and gas interests in that side of the world. When Putin said he specifically asked Clinton at a summit, it said Russia would like to join NATO, and Clinton, I guess, was receptive to it, and he said he'd get back to Putin later that evening during the summit, went to go talk to our alphabet agencies who said, no, absolutely not. Clinton had to turn down Putin from joining NATO and possibly forging peace, because we always have to have that boogeyman on the other side of the world, right?
Well, yeah, and also NATO was basically formed because they're the We Hate Russia group,
right?
And they didn't think that was a good name for the group.
But to a larger point, too, Putin's not some madman who wants to see his country hellfire rained on his country with nuclear war. He's the most stable leader, even if, he can't condone everything he's done, right? But he's a statesman and he's trying to protect his people, while we are by proxy with Ukraine on Russia's front doorstep, where we would never accept Russia in our backyard in Cuba. Why can't people wrap their heads around this? We need to look at Russia as a potential ally and friend, but it's because of the alphabet agencies protecting capitalism and colonialism and empire all around the world that we're in this situation. And I will say this, despite the fact I'm not thrilled with Trump's stance on Israel and Gaza, I do believe he's somebody who wants to see less war and more peace, because he's not part of this insane war machine. He's got a family and he wants to make more money and live comfortably and luxuriously. So, at least we've got that little, I forgot, I can't take credit for this, but someone said, with Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, the chance you're taking, it's a loaded gun. All the chambers are full. You know what's going to happen when you pull the trigger. Trump, one chamber's empty. He's a wild card. Maybe we'll survive a little bit more because he's a wild card who's not completely owned by the deep state that saw Kamala Harris as their perfect empty suit proxy candidate who says anything and stands for nothing. Mm-hmm. How many times during this election cycle did her policies change? How many times did she change her accent to appeal to whatever room she was in? She's just a fucking phony. Why didn't she do Joe Rogan? Because she cannot be authentic and sit and just talk as a human being for 2-3 hours, whatever amount of, because she's rehearsed and she has a script. Ask her a question about So how do you see us, resolving, our situation with Russia and the Ukraine war and all of the tension over there? Well, I was born in a middle-class family. Who gives a fuck? No one you're not answering the question because you can't answer the question. You can't be authentic. And this is why you lost. That's why she lost. That's why the Democrats will continue to lose.
Yeah, she's an empty suit. And yeah, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. She would have been worse than Biden as far as like being controlled, because at least Biden has been in the game forever. I mean, she was what, in California, and then she was a senator for 5 minutes, and then
well, that was also through Willie Brown was literally her sponsor.
Yeah,
I won't go into. I mean, we all have heard, and it's no secret, her hanging out with Montel. She was a social climber with Montel Williams and Willie Brown. A lot of people are, okay. I mean, Donald Trump early in his career was a social climber. Okay, whatever. But when you look that's how she forged her career, you cannot say it's sexist or it's misogynist to deny and ignore how she got in that circle and how it aided her. Where some people say, yeah, she got in her position as Attorney General, but she's one of the laziest people at her job. That's why she's not prepared to be president, because it's a title for her. It's not something she actually does the work at. She's a front person. So long as she gets all the credit and all of the attention for being vice president or president, look, for the past 6 or 7 months while she's been campaigning and Joe's been on a beach, it couldn't be any clearer. The president does not run the country, nor does the vice president. We've been on autopilot with our alphabet agencies since it was finally confirmed and could no longer be denied that Joe Biden is in cognitive decline, and they never should have ran him 4 years ago because they knew it at the time. But these greedy motherfuckers couldn't let Bernie Sanders win and throw some bones to the rest of us with health care for all, or a living wage, or any of the other things that were part of his platform. These greedy motherfuckers had to take it. No. Oh, this is Brock. I got to make the phone call. Joe, I'm sorry, Amy and Pete, you got to coalesce around Joe here because donors are just not accepting Bernie Sanders. We got to do something about this. That's what that was all about. They were too fucking greedy to give Americans, working class people, something because they're so fucking fat on their asses serving their donors. I'll tell you something. Had they allowed Bernie to run and given the American people something, they wouldn't have lost this election. The Democratic Party would be in a position of power had they let Bernie serve the people that decided to go over to the Republicans because the Republicans suddenly started paying attention to working class concerns.
I'm curious how a hypothetical Bernie presidency would have handled the COVID crisis, because I'm sure that still would have happened.
Yeah, I've got some. I've always speculated. We were talking about this before the show, and I'm glad you brought this up. It's always been my belief it was some dumb asshole in a gain-of-function research lab who didn't decontaminate before he walked out, and that's how this virus spread. Now, given the fact that they missed Trump when they tried to whack him a couple months back in Oswald 2.0, but they didn't expect they were going to miss the shot while they took out the patsy. Guys, what if COVID was released as a gain-of-function virus because they wanted to basically derail and usurp the fact Trump's presidency? Would you put it past these people to pull something like that? We already have all the suspicions in the world. They let 9/11 happen. Why not let a virus get out to get rid of the guy who the deep state can't stand, who was never supposed to win? They never expected him to beat Hillary Clinton, but he did.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past the three-letter agencies to try and pull something like that, but I'm a little skeptical that that's how it went down.
Well, I'm not convinced on it, but you know what, Ed? It's like people are okay, with everything we've been lied about, I'm suddenly, every time we discover something we were lied to about something, I suddenly start to think, well, maybe the opposite is true. I'm not believing it wholeheartedly, but I have to consider what if, because everything else we've been lied about, we've absolutely believed we were getting the truth from our government, from our healthcare leaders. Fauci, oh, he's a doctor, we have to trust him. I've been trained throughout my life to trust medicine, trust science. Fauci misled everybody. When you see such massive disinformation by the people who are supposed to be responsible to give the right information, and you realize, oh no, and they willingly misinform people. That's why it's like, I have to consider it. Even if I don't completely believe it, my mind goes towards they've been willing to lie about everything else. They clearly tried to take out Trump. That was clearly a deep state operation. They cremated the body. They cleaned up the crime scene. It happened right on top of a shed that CIA was inside of. People had cell phones. They couldn't say, oh, it was your imagination, like when Oswald shot JFK. It was clearly an inside, and no one's been talking about it since it happened. Now that he's won, I'm really curious to see if he's going to start settling scores with what they tried to do.
House.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet he fires a bunch of Secret Service people. That's for sure.
I saw somewhere that a bunch
you got to get out of here. You almost got me killed. I'm sorry. I can't have you. You're very nice people, but you got to get the fuck out.
Oh, Warren, you do a better Trump than I do. I'm going to let you read Trump stuff next time.
Yours is good. Yours is almost like a kind of a Floyd from Andy Griffith a little bit.
He does kind of sound like that.
Kind of a little bit more laid back. Andy, I know this boy. I cut his hair, so it's very nice. Everybody talks about his hair. It's very nice. See, they're interchangeable.
Pretty much same cadence.
Someone on Twitter said that there were a bunch of senior level FBI people that are planning their early exits right now.
Yeah, I'm sure they are heading for the
it
doors.
Could be very well because of the shenanigans that they were probably put up to by any number of presidential administrations that aren't Trump.
Has anybody heard what she's the head of CIA or head of Secret Service after she testified and lost her memory? I'm sure she failed upwards somewhere. She's probably got some private job somewhere now after she resigned when she couldn't keep up the facade that, you know, they completely dropped the ball on that. Or they didn't drop the ball. They let it happen.
She's working at McDonald's flipping burgers for $25 an hour. So
where she belongs.
Where she belongs, right? Well, she's skilled though. That's
receipt checker at Costco.
Yeah, she's skilled though. You know, so she gets the $25 an hour. So Lou should be happy about that.
Look. You know, I mean, we make jokes about some of these different types of positions and stuff, but every one of those full-time positions deserves a living wage.
Well, yeah. If you're a human, you deserve a living wage. It doesn't matter what kind of job you do, right? I mean, if the company can afford it, if the company can't afford a living wage, you probably shouldn't be in business. That's part of your business model is being able to afford the staff that's going to run the place for you.
It's an operating expense.
I don't know why he's stuck on $25 an hour. Not a lot of places that have to have $25 an hour. You adjust it to the place where you're living, right?
The point being that the problem is that the number is hard for people to wrap their heads around because they're so used to a lower minimum wage number in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And then they've been propagandized for decades into thinking minimum wage doesn't deserve to be a living wage. It's always been intended to be a living wage.
Exactly.
Right. And if we had adjusted wages to production over the years, it would be $25 an hour now.
Yeah,
but that stopped like in the 80s when Reagan came along. You know, that's when it was just like production went, and wages were just like this. So it's like
the
$25
salaries went through the roof.
Yeah, and the CEO salaries went through the roof, but yet the workers were getting screwed. But that's okay as long as the CEOs get their money, right? You know, because you know that's capitalism. It's not capitalism. It's crony capitalism.
Which is capitalism.
Yeah.
We'll see, Liana. I hope. I mean, again, I'm not a fan of Trump, but as I said at the beginning of the show, I don't have to be happy he won while being happy the Democrats lost, because they did not earn anybody's vote with their tone-deaf approach, and they're doubling down during her concession speech that nothing's going to change. I don't think they're going to pay any attention. What they're going to do is they're going to fundraise off of this for the next 4 years.
Yep.
That's all, and they're all going to sit on their fat asses, still making the money, having the trough getting refilled for them, while they pretend that they're the big resistance against Trump now because of transgender rights and abortion.
Well, that's why it was going to be
are
win-win for
important
him.
issues, but not the only issues that you run an entire fucking campaign on.
Well, that's why this was literally win-win. So it's like if she wins, yeah, then they win. But if she loses, then it's campaign on the Orange Man for 4 years. Make that money. Make that money. You know?
Thank you, comrade. Thank you, comrade, constitutional conservative.
I'm a Richard Marxist, by the way, because I love 80s music. You're welcome.
Guys, anything? Actually, Warren, I would like to bring the show to a close. Why don't you share with our viewers? And I would be shocked if they didn't already know of you and your wonderful channel that has been growing like crazy over the past year, which I've been I've enjoyed watching and very happy to watch. And you have to invite me on, Warren, because I want to have some fun with you on your show. Share with our audience that might not already know about you, your channel and what you do.
I'm all over the place now. So on Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings, I have a straight news show, very little commentary in it. It's just basically old school. Here's the news from independent reporters from around the world, getting it to you. And that seems to I've gotten a pretty good response from that. It's starting to get more views in the mornings because of that too. And I still have the flagship, which is Extra Bull Alive. I usually do that on Wednesday evenings, and that's my conversational, having interviews and stuff. So we'll have you on there, Jerry. I haven't forgotten.
Look,
I'm waiting for the right time, the right temperature, the right seasoning, and then we get you on.
We've got great rapport, and as well as along with Ed, and I really love what you do with your show. The production values are far better than ours, which is another thing I admire. But it's just fun to talk to you about this shit and whatever. We were really diving down the rabbit hole on UAP disclosure, which is another pet interest of mine that as you do those shows, also I'd love to participate in.
And just a quick aside to our buddy Lou in the chat. I've seen you a bunch of times on this show, Lou. I love you to death. I think you're a swell guy. Yeah, we do have a lot of differences of opinion, and I do get a little spirited over it because I'm a poor guy from the South who grew up very dirt poor and have seen people getting screwed over in the workplace many, many times. So, and I used to be a rock and roll DJ with classic rock. So, yeah, we could talk music if you want to. But I also
Let me tell you something. If you guys put the politics aside, you'd get along famously.
Yeah, and that's the point. It's like you could talk to anybody. That's the thing. If you want to talk to people outside the bubble, don't talk about politics. Talk about things that you have in common first, and then you work your way to those more sensitive subjects. But you gotta start at common ground too. So, but we do a show on Saturday nights too. It's called The Secret Show, and it's just fun, silly, just blow off some steam. Forget about the world for a couple hours and just have some fun with some nutty stuff. So we try to provide a plethora. We try to provide information. We try to provide good conversations with interesting people, and we try to provide some entertainment. And so, like I said, the channel is growing. It's growing, but it's growing at a pace that I like. I mean, some people want to get like thousands and thousands of subscribers and stuff. I
know some of those people. It's all about the subscribers. It's all about the clout.
I'm all about the community, and I'm all about bringing in new people who want to get informed about news around the world or meet interesting people, that sort of thing. And it's been growing steady, little bit, but it's been consistent. And I just want to say I appreciate everybody that has supported the show, including you guys too. You guys have been supported me too, obviously, and I'm very humbled by that, Jerry. I appreciate that. So.
Warren's got a fun channel, and you're a great dude. You've got charisma. Your personality radiates. You're funny too. I mean, I know you were telling me that you would usually you would MC comedy shows and basically warm up the crowd and stuff. Warren's a funny guy, and his show speaks to that. It's very funny and informative, and that's why hopefully when the opportunity comes up, not to invite myself, but I'm always available. However you can utilize me to participate, I enjoy.
I think you're avoiding me, Jerry. I've asked you several times, and you've just blown me off.
Yeah.
So I've been I have my pride Jerry. There's other people that want to come on this show. I don't need you.
I've just been waiting for the night that's like you have an opening and oh God, that's what she said. To like, yeah, Liana's talking about Oswald 2.0. Yeah, people saw the guy 30 minutes in advance, Liana. Yeah. All right, and Ed, bring us up to speed on what's up with you since we.
Oh, what is up with me? Well,
Ed was doing,
I've been trying to grow a beard for about a month now, and I don't
looks
know if I'm gonna
nice.
keep it,
Yeah.
but it's coming in a lot wider than I thought it would. Considering the stuff around the goatee area is it's a little bit of a mixed bag, really.
Ed, do you think this is natural color?
No, I think you're coloring that, but
there are solutions. There are solutions.
I don't want to color my hair. I mean, it's going to be what it's going to be. But I don't know if I'm going to keep the sideburns though, because I usually go with just the what they call the Van Dyke, or modern day people call it a goatee. But what's going on with me other than that is I'm working on this little experiment called Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show. And you can find it on YouTube and Rumble. And he's even got a Twitter channel. I think it's at Chuck UFO, I think.
He don't know his own shit.
I don't know. I mean, but it's just a little creative thing that I'm doing. I mean, some of you, if some of you have seen Chuck in older episodes of Chicago Corner, where he's hacked into the channel and like abducted me and taken over my video stream to talk about UFO related items. Chuck is from outer space. He's got his fleet of spaceships, and he has an intergalactic pizza delivery service where he delivers pizza to other planets. Because apparently, and was a shock to me, he says that Earth is the only planet that has pizza.
I don't. I think that I think Chuck's your secret identity, Ed. I think like Bruce Wayne, like Batman is Bruce Wayne's secret identity. I think Chuck is your actual secret identity. I think you are Chuck wearing an Ed mask right now.
Well, if you notice,
the chin fits.
Point. He's got the point, right? Yeah. Just like that is. I bet it is Chuck.
Yeah, I don't have the tech hooked up to do that secret technical shift, but Chuck's got a show. It's probably going to air on Friday nights when it does air. There's 2 episodes in the can right now. If you want to watch the first 2, I've re-edited them into a special edition that's about 90 minutes. It's silly. It's pretty ridiculous. If you like sci-fi, you like UFO stuff, and you like video games, it might be up your alley. I don't know where else we're going to go with the show, but we are kind of creating a story arc for Chuck, and hopefully we'll be able to cover some other things as well. And I hope you'll tune in or at least watch the show and let me know how you like it. If you have any comments or suggestions on what Chuck should do during his show, I'd be willing to hear it.
Oh, go ahead.
And finally, if you guys have been living under a rock, I have a website called realdeepdish.com where it teaches you how to make Chicago styles of pizza at home. So if you're from Chicago, or if you want to learn how to make Chicago style pizza, and you don't have a deep dish or a thin crust joint near you that's giving you the pizza you need, learn how to make your own.
It's delicious. We've all had it. Ed should own a pizza parlor place.
Yeah,
and make money.
Got $1 million.
Ed's recipes on his website. I know it's startup costs, but I'll tell you, everybody, Ed's recipes that he's sharing with the world free on his website are restaurant cuisine quality.
Very good.
And it costs a lot of money. Last time I ordered a deep dish pizza, $40.
Yeah.
What do you think it costs ingredients to like make it at home with one of your recipes?
Well, it's more now than it used to be. I know we were talking about how grocery prices were going up, and I had been tracking the cost of tomatoes. And used to be you could get a decent can of tomatoes for deep dish for like $1.99 usually, and now they're closer to $3 or $4 a can.
My point is, it's far less than $40 in delivery charges.
Correct. That's
Okay.
Sorry to
It's
go
a
off on
point.
the rails here, but yes, Jerry, it is a lot cheaper to make pizza at home. You just have to. I mean, there is some time involved, because you want to make pizza dough. Sometimes, if you really want to let that dough get good and fermented and flavorful, you might want to let it hang out in the fridge for 24 or 48 hours, and that's time you got to invest, but you plan ahead. I want a pizza on Friday, you make your dough on Wednesday.
Gentlemen, I thank you for your time. Hopefully we will do this again a lot sooner than later.
Yes, more of these, please. More, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And to our audience out there on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us during our triumphant return to YouTube. I want to remind everybody as you go through your week, your month, your year, to make sure to stay safe, be vigilant, watch out for each other. And remember, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. Our outro is dedicated to Kira. I know I'm going to go to hell for this or hear about it later, but enjoy. Good night, everybody.
Worst vice president, you're the worst border czar. There's never been anybody bad like you. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. If you would like to be a guest on Chicago Corner, please email our host, Jerry, at chicagocorner.tv.